OK, I'm pleased to say we do now have the Shadow Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, joining us this morning. Good to see you, Wes. Thanks for coming in. I want to start by asking you about our lead story. Good morning. And this is the issue with the postal votes. Now, I'm told that it's actually mainly Conservative voters that choose to vote in this way. But, of course, this is important for democracy. And I'm sure you are very concerned to hear that 9 constituencies are reporting issues with these.
This is extremely serious. We have postal votes for a reason. Often people choose to vote by post, not just because they have difficulty getting to a polling station on the day, but because they're going away on holiday and they're not going to be around on polling day. So there are people I know, because I've spoken to them in the last couple of weeks on the campaign trail, who've flown off on holiday without having been able to vote in the election. And I think that's a disgrace, actually.
Yeah, and it's not just people going off on holiday, it's people who are busy working and simply can't get to a polling station. A real concern to the democratic process. Do you feel as though this is a symptom of broken Britain? And I wonder what reforms you would like to see for Royal Mail, who are squarely being blamed for this, as far as I understand, should you get into government?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the Electoral Commission needs to look really seriously into this and look at where the responsibility lies, because it doesn't seem to me to be a problem just kind of looking in from the outside of councils getting this wrong, but Royal Mail literally failing to deliver. And I do think there has to be accountability for that.
Can I ask you about Sir Keir Starmer, whether or not he's a little bit work shy? I mean, just this morning, for example, we've got our correspondents out on the battle buses. Poor old Catherine Forster's on the Conservative battle bus. She and the Prime Minister were up at 2 a.m. I believe the Prime Minister was handing out McDonald's at 5 a.m. to people in a Ocado depot. And yet the Labour campaign isn't getting underway until 9 o'clock this morning. You look at the front of the Telegraph and it's headlining that Sir Keir Starmer won't be working after 6 o'clock and wanting to protect his Friday nights. Is this a sign of what's to come with Sir Keir Starmer?
No, let's be clear about 2 things. Firstly, Keir was talking in an interview about how, as leader of the opposition, he's always sought to keep Fridays special for his kids because he's a good dad and because his wife's family have Jewish heritage and Friday nights are special for that reason. And secondly, the fact that we are 2 days out from a general election where the country faced an important choice, and the party that brought you the biggest lockdown party in Downing Street tells you something about their lies, their hypocrisy, the stench of which is even more overwhelming than the vomit they left for Downing Street cleaners to clean up. And that's why I hope on Thursday people will give change a chance with Labour so that we can clean the Tories' mess up too.
Yeah, I'm sure you're not suggesting Rishi Sunak's not a good dad if he hasn't dedicated his Friday nights to his children. But I suppose there will be people looking at your workers' rights agenda.
No, definitely not. Quite the opposite, actually.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the workers' rights agenda, because lots of people will be thinking, right, OK, is this a sign? I know Angela Rayner would absolutely love to see a 4-day working week. Businesses will be thinking, is that going to be coming a little bit further down the line? Can you rule that out?
Yeah, that's not in Labour's New Deal for working people, but making sure we take action on 0 hours contracts that leave people unable to predict their hours and therefore unable to pay their bills. That's not good for families. That's not good for the economy either. Making sure that we've got people in social care who are paid a fair day's work for a fair day's wage for a fair day's work. That's really important too. Labour's got a proud record on employment rights, and actually what's good for the economy is good for what's good for working people, because it's working people who build this country's economic success.
Can we talk about the polls? Savanta released one last night for the Telegraph, which had the best result yet for the Tories, up 3 points. Do you think we might see a little bit of a narrowing of the polls over the next few days, and perhaps not this supermajority that everyone has been suggesting in recent weeks?
I've never believed this supermajority nonsense. I've been out campaigning in every corner of the country during the course of this election campaign. It's never felt to me that way. And the simple fact is, you only get change if you vote for it. And people have to make a serious choice on Thursday as to whether they want change with Labour or no change with the Conservatives. If you think the country is in a better place today than it was 14 years ago, if you think our NHS is in a better place today than it was 14 years ago, our police, our schools, trust in our politics and politicians. If you think it's all been fine, the Conservatives have done a great job, you can vote for the Conservatives. But I think most people in this country are sick of the chaos, sick of the division and sick of the clown show. I think it's time to bring that circus to an end. The only way to do that is to choose change with Labour, and that's the choice facing the country on Thursday.
Is it though? I mean, you say you only get change if you vote for it, and yet there will be plenty of people, perhaps millions of people, who will vote on Thursday and perhaps only see 1 or 2 MPs for that particular party. There are lots of questions swirling around about whether or not first past the post is fit for purpose in 2024. What's your own view on this?
We're not planning to change the first past the post voting system.
You don't worry about legitimacy of your mandate?
It's served this country well for a very long time now. We'll judge the outcome of the election when we have it. We're not taking anything or anyone for granted ahead of that. But on the ballot paper on Thursday is 40,000 more appointments a week to cut NHS waiting lists, primary school breakfast clubs so kids start the day with hungry minds, not hungry bellies,
yes,
13,000 more police officers on our streets so that we can keep people safe. That's the change that Labour offers.
Yes, but you say we'll judge it when we see it. So is that saying that if you do happen to have the smaller vote share than some of your predecessors, but yet more seats than, say, Tony Blair managed to get, you will re-evaluate and reconsider whether or not first past the post works? What do you mean when you say we'll judge it when we see?
Well, look, the Labour Party does not have a change in the voting system in our manifesto. That's not one of our priorities. Our priorities are cutting NHS waiting lists, making sure that kids have a great state education, making sure we keep our streets safe, and most importantly, getting our economy growing again so we don't end up with the low-growth, high-tax economy the Conservatives have saddled our country with.
And if you were to sum up in 3 words what I suppose Sir Keir Starmer's motif would be, you know, you had education, education, education for Tony Blair. Do you think it's fair to say build, build, build will be what Starmer's is, and we can see goodbye to our green and pleasant land? Because a lot of voters, a lot of GB News listeners and watchers of the programme, very worried about their precious green belt.
The Labour Party was a party of the green belt. Of course we want to make sure that our green and pleasant land is protected. We also need to build the homes that our country needs. I grew up on a council estate, and let me tell you, the kids who are growing up in my constituency in the same poverty that I grew up in, they don't have the security of a council flat over their head. They're in bed and breakfast, being pushed from pillar to post, and not just from home to home, but from school to school. What chance have those kids got to get the great state education that I have? I have seen families in the most grotty accommodation imaginable, and even people who aren't at the sharpest end are struggling to pay their rents, which are rocketing. They're struggling to pay their mortgages. Thanks very much, Liz Truss and the mini-budget. Unless we build the homes this country needs, we will continue to have a housing crisis that drives a cost of living crisis, and we will not allow that to happen.
Wes, many people in your own party are concerned about child poverty. Gordon Brown, for example, saying you need to do more on this issue. It's not just about housing. You're going to have a big row on this if you do have a big majority come Friday. Which side of the fence are you going to be on this? Do you think that the cap should stay on child benefit? Because I know this is a big issue for the left.
Well, Labour opposed the 2-child limit, and we don't support the policy. But the reason why we've not put it in our manifesto at this stage is because every policy in our manifesto has got to be fully costed, fully funded, a promise we can keep and a promise the country can afford. We will have a cross-government child poverty strategy to reduce child poverty, like the last Labour government did, lifting 1 million kids out of poverty. But whether it's free primary school breakfast clubs, building the homes we need, insulating homes to cut people's bills, switching on Great British Energy so we can create jobs and cut bills, the New Deal for working people, all of these things are going to make a big difference to reducing child poverty. And that is a contrast with a Conservative Party that has seen child poverty go up. You can judge us on our record and give us a mandate to plan for the future too.
OK, you don't support it, but you are keeping it. I'm being told you've got to go. Wes Streeting, thanks for making time for us. Appreciate it. Right,
no, thanks for having us. Thank you.
Very, very welcome.